Hey guys, I'm back with another episode. And honestly, today I don't really have a topic in particular that I want to talk about. So let's just get straight into whatever my mind feels like talking about today. Oh my god, I'm losing my voice already, and it hasn't even been like 10 seconds. But, okay. So, first of all, I want to say that I actually have a bunch of philosophy books sitting right next to me that I bought from Barnes and Noble. And I think one of them was from Half Price Books. But yeah, I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually minored in philosophy, and if I'd only taken three more classes, I would have been a double major in philosophy. Um, and also my college's philosophy program is very strong. It's very well renowned. Wait, what's the word? I can't think. Guys, it's been a long day. It's like a very good, strong well-known program with great professors. And why am I mentioning all this? Oh, yeah. But anyways, I've just been thinking about philosophy and my mind a lot. I feel like I don't know about you guys, but for me, I think about how my brain works and how my mind operates constantly because to me, understanding how my brain works and how I work is the fundamental key to understanding myself. And if I can understand myself, I can live a better life. And anyways, I have been very interested in philosophy since I was probably like 18 or 19. Since my freshman year of college or sophomore year of college, I was 18 my sophomore year, so I guess 18-ish. But what's it called? Anyways, so what am I saying? So anyways, I have been very interested in philosophy for quite some years. So I picked up these books that I want to read, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't necessarily love reading like the really like classic philosopher books. I had to read a lot of like the mainstream most popular philosophers' work in my philosophy classes, like Kierkegaard. I don't even know how to say all these people's names correctly, but like him and what the fuck are the other people's names? Immanuel Kant. God, I can't remember anymore how to pronounce all of their names, but the whole like typical philosopher list of biggest philosophers ever in Western philosophy, at least. And I don't know why I kind of resonate more with like philosophers who are more like modern, but not like the pop psychology type of modern where it's actually not substantial at all, and you can tell that they're clearly trying to appeal to a larger audience. I mean, I will say I think philosophy should ideally try to target a larger audience, but in reality, most people are not that interested in philosophy, or at least like what real philosophy is, and not like pseudo philosophy or pseudo intellectual philosophy. But, anyways, what was my point? I have ADHD, guys. I've mentioned this before, but that's why I keep getting so distracted. Um, but anyways, my favorite types of philosophy books and philosophy writings, I guess, would be from philosophers who are like more modern, like maybe within the last few decades or so, but they can still write timeless pieces. Because I don't really want to read philosophy that is like dumbed down in a way, or like it just incorporates too many elements of current things, if that makes sense. I just don't enjoy that as much. It's kind of similar, obviously, to like the phenomenon that people say in general, where they kind of don't like it when they read fiction books, and immediately there's like a mention of like an iPhone or like a MacBook or something, and then suddenly they're just kind of taken out of like the whole, fiction book genre. Or wait, what am I saying? They're entirely taken out of what they're reading because it's just too like, what's the word? It's breaking that escape, I guess, that you're supposed to get from reading a fiction book. Anyways, so back to my point, I have these different philosophy books and I'm excited to read them, honestly. I'll tell you what they are. So, okay, I know I just said that my favorite type of philosophy books are the ones that are more modern, but I actually bought a lot of older style ones. So I have this book called On the Shortness of Life by the philosopher Seneca. God, I don't know how to say his name, but I know he's very famous. Seneca. That is his name. Everyone's probably heard of him. And then the next book is The Philosophy of Aristotle. It's like this big book. I'm excited to read it. I've never really dove too much into the main like ancient philosophers in that way, but I am excited to read it. And then my other books that I have are the Hermetica, The Lost Wisdom of the Pharaohs by Timothy Freak, Frake, I don't want to say that wrong, and Peter Gandy. And then I have this book from an author who I've read part of a different book from him before, and I really liked what I read so far, but it's called The Heart of Philosophy by Jacob Needleman. And then I also have this one book that me and my friend are doing for our book club. It's just me and my friend. We have like a weekly book club. We kind of paused it because of like other things going on in my life, but um it's an Ayn Rand book called The Virtue of Selfishness. And so, anyways, there. Oh, I just dropped my book. The reason why I am giving you all this backstory about philosophy books is because, well, first of all, something you should know about me is that I have many, many, many hot takes, and they are not common hot takes. They're honestly very like hot takes, like very out there hot takes that I have not really heard anyone say, at least online or definitely not in person. And honestly, like, I don't know. It's just something, I feel like people in my life know about me. And sorry, I'm trying to pull up my notes app for a second. I hope this is still recording. Okay, but I was thinking about this because I think philosophy just makes up such a huge part of my life. And the reason why I'm so interested in philosophy is because I feel like it's one of the only avenues that I feel as though the thing that I am truly interested in my life, which is really just trying to understand the human existence. I feel like philosophy is the only thing that provides that for me in that way, or one of the only things. And I think that I feel seen and heard through a lot of these different philosophers, and I feel like I can relate to so many things of what they say because I feel like honestly I live in a society, not to sound like a pick me, but I feel like I really do live in a society where everyone just seems so brainwashed and like in a cult due to all these artificial social norms, and I just feel like seeing or reading philosophers' writings, it like it's kind of nice because I know that they're kind of probably also, writing philosophical work to, I guess, fulfill that need that they have that maybe they can't get through majority of the people in the society that they lived in. And so, anyways, I was thinking about this because again, as I mentioned, I think about philosophy a lot. And recently I was thinking about how okay, so let me backtrack. So when I was a kid, I think I was maybe in like fourth grade, third grade, I think fourth grade, I was um diagnosed, you could say, or I don't want to say diagnosed, but I was put into the gifted and talented program at my school. And at my school, when I was like a junior or senior in high school, they told us that in order to even qualify for the program, you had to have at least a 130 IQ, which translates to the 98th percentile. So you had to have at least a 130 IQ. And I hate even mentioning this because I, for one, have always thought that the discourse around giftedness and gifted kid burnout and all that kind of stuff was so like pretentious, corny, cringe, icky, unself aware. Like, I've always thought that. And I agree still, if we're talking about, people who talk about giftedness in a way where it's about like academics or about some kind of artificial moral superiority or just some kind of like way to make themselves feel better than other people. I do not agree with that. I do not like that. But I think that for me, I've just been thinking so much about giftedness recently because it's kind of like I honestly forgot that I was gifted. Like, I knew that I was gifted. I knew that like I was told that I had a certain level of intelligence that I guess maybe other people don't have. And I know, by me just saying that statement, I sound so elitist. But when you look at it objectively, I didn't say anything that's like not correct. Like, I know there are going to be people out there who are like, well, IQ is a bad measure of intelligence, but after doing thorough research, I don't actually think that it is a bad measure. I actually think it's a pretty good measure, and I think that people who think that pattern recognition, or okay, I'll backtrack. So there are people online who will be like, well, IQ is just a measure of pattern recognition, that's not intelligence. But actually that's the entirety of intelligence, is being able to see patterns, is having a very high level of pattern recognition, abstract thinking and conceptual thinking, and creativity also. But the entire basis of high intelligence is pattern recognition, and I don't think that people realize that as much. And so I kind of honestly forgot that I was gifted. And I don't know, for the past few years, ever since I legitimately developed consciousness, and I could talk about that thing for days, um, I feel like I am just living in this society where I'm just like the only one who's not brainwashed. And I know how pick me that sounds. I don't want it to sound pick me at all, but it's my experience, and that's how it's felt for so long, since I was like 17. And I know because I was on the other end of it too. Before I quote unquote developed consciousness, I lived like everyone else, and I kind of adhered to certain social norms. Not all social norms, definitely not. I still from a very young age had like a certain idea of knowing like this is okay, this is not, or like this is fake, you know? But I feel like for me, I can understand it, and I know what it's like to live on the other side, but I I think having higher intelligence, and I know again the way that that sounds, saying higher intelligence to someone else may sound pretentious, but I trust me, like I am a very objective person. So when I say certain things, I'm not trying to say them in like a certain way. I'm just saying it as it is, as an objective fact, which is that when you are a gifted person, you do technically have higher intelligence, okay? And I like me me saying it in a different way doesn't take away from a fact or like a truth. And and by the way, I'm not saying that I have this higher level of intelligence to flatter my ego or whatever. I'm saying it because it relates to a big struggle of my life, which is why, and this is why I'm mentioning philosophy, is philosophy has been my main way to, I guess, satisfy or fulfill that missing craving, I guess. I don't know what the word is, but I don't know, just feeling like such an alien in society. And I guess I guess I'm just like not, I just don't, not, it's not that I don't fit in. Like I can play the part if I have to, but it's so hard to live sometimes when you like know that everything is fake around you. Like you know the entire concept of money is fake. You know that everything about everything that we know about wealth is fake. Everything that we know about careers is fake. Romantic love, I believe, is fake. Like everything is fake. And when you realize that, it is so hard to live a normal life. And I think about this every single day, no joke. And so I think for me, having philosophy has been very helpful because it's one of the only avenues where I feel like I can feel understood, because no one else seems to really talk about this. And so, what's it called? I feel like going back to giftedness though, and I have so many thoughts about giftedness, but I think that for me, being a gifted person, I feel like I can see through things and analyze things in such a deeper way. And I know me saying the word deeper again makes it seem like I'm implying that I'm better than other people, but that's not actually what I said, right? Like I don't personally believe that me being able to see things on a more deeper level, I don't think that that implies that there's any type of betterness to it, or like I don't think I'm morally superior for that. Actually though, I will say I think you can make an argument though that maybe technically people with a higher intelligence are able to understand things better, and if you can understand your morals better, maybe you are then therefore more able to be a better person if you're a more conscious person. But that's a whole other argument. I'm not even going to get into that right now. But um I just think that it's honestly difficult sometimes, and I do really appreciate philosophy. What was I saying? Can't even remember. But I think that it is hard because I am a very deep person. I know that's so cringe to say. Like I trust me, I know. But when I interact with people in life in general, it it does feel very isolating, and I didn't realize that it was such an isolating experience because again, I'm not talking about giftedness from like an academic perspective, okay? Like I think the reason why people get so I guess turned off to the idea around giftedness or about giftedness is because they're like, "Oh, well gifted people like they were just those people who were told that they were just above average at reading third grade reading passages or whatever." But actually that's not what giftedness is. Gifted people fundamentally have a different level of intelligence where they can see through things at a much deeper level. They can see things that other people aren't able to see. It literally feels like you're not even like a psychic. Well, psychic too, because psychics I feel like probably rely on pattern recognition, to be honest. But it literally feels like you're hallucinating almost. Well, not even hallucinating. I wouldn't say hallucinating either because hallucination implies that like you're seeing things that aren't there. But gifted people can see things that are there, but other people are not able to see. And I know there's a an analogy that I could think of, but it's not coming to my head right now, so I'm just gonna skip over that. But anyways, I think it's really difficult because I always want so much depth in my life. And something I've noticed about myself is that and I'm not saying this is right. I don't think this is wrong or right. It's just how I feel like I am wired. But I think that for me, in order to feel close to a person, I have to be able to be intellectually deep with them, if that makes sense. And I think that it's hard because I mean, think about it. Like, I'm in my 20s, and if I were to try to make a new friend, like, let's say I joined like a club, like a run club, God forbid, or something, like, like, how can you know based off meeting someone for the first time if they are similar to you in that way, where they can connect with you on a deeper level? And I feel like until I did research online about giftedness and the experiences of giftedness, I didn't really know that what I had been feeling was isolation. And I did a lot of online reading about it. And at first I was like, oh, what do you mean like you're feeling isolated as a gifted person? But now I have come to realize that I really do feel isolated and I just didn't know it. Or not that I didn't know it, I did know it, but I just didn't realize that that is that wait, that's what that is. And so I feel like it's hard because intellectual depth is something that I have realized my brain literally requires in order for me to connect to a person and feel like they are very close to me. And it kind of sucks because there's so many great people that I have around me, but I feel like sometimes we just can't get to that deeper level. And actually, I would say a lot of my good friends we can, maybe not as like deep as I'd like to, and I would love to meet another person who can get to the level that I feel like I require. And that sounds so pretentious to say, I know, by the way. But I do have like a couple of friends who can get me in that way. But I feel like there are some friends that I have who I love so dearly, but I feel like that depth of like the intellectual depth. Okay, that sounds so bad. Hold on. Let me try to rephrase. Like for some reason like we can just never get to that point, and I feel like I really do try to get there, but I realize that their brain fundamentally does not go to that level at all, and nor are they even interested, nor do they care. Like, they're not interested, they can't do it, and they're not, and that sounds so bad to say, I know, and they don't care. And that kind of sucks because I feel like my for me, I feel like I'm always just meeting people where their depth is and going as far as they can go. And that, I know, again, sounds so bad. It sounds so pretentious and elitist, but trust me, I'm not saying that from an elitist perspective at all. I'm just saying it objectively. Like, I know, obviously, like, who am I, right? Like, you don't know me. How can you believe me that I'm being objective with that? But trust me, like, I am not trying to say that in any kind of mean way. It's just a fact, I feel like. And yeah, of course you'd be like, well, what do you mean fact? Like, that's your opinion. But no, like, trust me, guys, trust me. And anyways, I feel like it kind of sucks too because I feel like when I, have to meet people as deep as they can go, I feel like I'm succumbing to the depth of the people around me. And when I do that, I lose the pieces of myself. I lose those deeper pieces of myself, and I guess I feel more and more isolated. And I think that's so antithetical to who I want to be. I want to be someone who can feel fully intellectually satisfied and have all those intellectual depth requirements met, but it's really difficult to find those kinds of people. And I know people go to like Mensa and they join Mensa and whatever, but honestly, like, I've always thought Mensa was kind of pretentious up until I realized that these are the types of struggles that gifted people have. Okay, not like the gifted kid burnout, although that is a real phenomenon technically too, in my opinion. But I don't know. I think it's more connected to being gifted and neurodivergent, but also I think people talk about it in such a pretentious way. Like, I think the phenomenon is real, but I think that it's just a cringe way to talk about it, and like, people use it in a subtle, humble bragging, elitist kind of way. But yeah, anyways, I feel like I do lose pieces of myself when all the connections around me are just not as deep as I not even not as deep as I want to be, but it's more like some of the people, not all, but some of the people around me, I just don't think that they can get to the level that I want them to be, and that's not even their fault. That's the thing. It's genuinely not their fault. They're great people. It's just that it's hard, and I feel like it is, as I said, antithetical. Is that how you say it? To who I want to be. So, am I supposed to actively search for people who are as deep as me to, to resolve this internal philosophical conflict, or do I just go about my life? Also, I am someone, and I'll probably talk about this some other day, but I am someone who really thinks about the underlying pattern of accountability and victim mindsets and stuff like that. And I am, telling you guys about all of this, but I realistically know that we all have a choice, and I could very well choose to just, you know, go out of my way and create the solution that I want. Like, I don't actually have to be bitching and complaining about this, like, this is like such a non-issue. Well, it's not a non-issue, but like, you know, I have this problem. I feel like my brain is wired to identify problems and then immediately try to find a solution in almost every other situation in my life. Yet, for this in particular, I'm just like identifying the problem and not actually doing the thing that I need to solve it. And so it's like that is also like contradictory to who I really am usually in my life. But anyways, like, it's like, bro, like, you can find ways, around it. But still, I want to talk about this experience because I don't really think many people do. And yeah, I think that pattern recognition and just my way of thinking, it's so honestly, I once I realized that I was gifted. I mean, I knew that I was gifted when I was younger, I guess, because I was put into the program. And as I said, you have to have at least a 130 IQ. I do think I know generally where I am. Again, not that sounds so pretentious to say. Although, does me identifying something as pretentious, does that mean that it's suddenly no longer pretentious of me to say? I don't necessarily think so. So maybe I am being pretentious, but um anyways, I what was I saying? Oh my god, I can't remember. But yeah, I just I oh, I remember. when I was a kid, like I don't know, a lot of people who are gifted who I've talked to, or maybe people online, like not people that I've talked to online, but people that I've seen online, or also people I know in real life who are gifted, like some of my close friends, some, like a small some. Well, that sounds bad. That's not what I meant. But I just mean like anyways, I'm going to stop talking about that. But I was going to say though that what was I saying? Oh yeah, like I think a lot of apparently apparently a lot of gifted people, like they say that when they were young they always knew that they were different. I know that sounds like pick me, but like I guess I didn't real like I guess I just never thought about it, honestly. Like I didn't really think like, oh, I was different. I think I knew I was different looking back now. I think I did know I was different in a way, but I didn't realize I was related to giftedness or intelligence or anything like that. I just thought it was like something else. Just or not even something else, but I just thought it was more like I have a strong set of morals and I tend to like, think about the long-term future. I'm very like long-term goal oriented. I'm not a very like impulsive person necessarily, and like I have a lot of self-control and like self-restraint or whatever, and I I know how to control myself in a way. And so I feel like that made me feel like I was different in a lot of ways, but I never really thought about it before. And at first when I heard other people who were gifted say that they felt different from other people when they were a kid, I didn't really like I was like, "Oh, like I don't really know if that's really the case for me." But looking back, I actually do think that it like that was the case for me and it was related to giftedness, but I didn't realize it at the time. And so now I feel like that is becoming more and more apparent in my life because I am like, you know, realizing, wow, like a lot of the struggles that okay, I know there are real struggles obviously that are happening right now, like hello, the things happening in Gaza, but for a very I guess on a more individual level, this kind of struggle, um it is hard when you realize that like a lot of people don't necessarily relate to your experience and they just aren't interested in the things that you're interested in talking about, like the systemic level of all these different things and how they like interact with each other, and I don't know, philosophy. Like, there's just so many things. And I actually want to talk about this more in a different episode because I don't want this episode to be too long. But, anyways, I was just thinking about that recently about, philosophy. I was thinking about giftedness and how it all kind of ties in together. And I just think that, having something like philosophy is very helpful for me. I don't know what I would do without it. And I can tell too that like a lot of these philosophers, like they probably felt similarly to the way that I feel, in a way. And yeah, so I'm excited to read my philosophy books. I'm excited to get more into reading, although I do have this really bad habit where I'll buy books, I'll like literally like idealize and romanticize the idea of reading a book. So I'll go to the bookstores and I'll go to Barnes and Noble and Half Price Books and all these other places and like local independent bookstores, and then I'll just like be looking around and I just like love the idea of buying books or like just having a book or just like browsing books, but then I'll buy them and then I don't actually read them, or like I'll read like a couple chapters and then I like forget about it. And I know that's also related to like my ADHD, but like it's such a bad habit, but I need to actually get myself to read these books. I need to help wait. I need to hold myself accountable, okay? I can't speak. Um but yeah, also I really like having philosophy books because I feel like generally speaking the philosophy books that I like to read are more abstract, and I think I like that more, honestly, than fiction books sometimes. I don't think like okay, also okay, I think for fiction versus like nonfiction, I feel like when it comes to reading, when I was younger, I used to really like fiction books and I did not like nonfiction books, but that was also before I developed quote unquote consciousness. And so now that I actually see the world completely differently, I feel like I don't really care for fiction books as much. I do still like fiction, like media in terms of like TV and movies, and I prefer that actually. So don't think that I'm like some kind of like pretentious snob. I keep saying the word pretentious, but like don't think I'm like some kind of snob or something for, being like, "Oh, now that I'm like grown up and mature and like conscious, I don't care about like fiction books." Like no. Okay, I I like watching fiction shows and movies way more than nonfiction movies and shows. But well, I don't know if well, I guess those would be documentaries. What am I saying? Anyways, but I was gonna say, when it comes to reading though, I do actually really like reading nonfiction books, and I like philosophy nonfiction book. Well, philosophy books are usually nonfiction, but I like nonfiction because I think that the more abstract, you know, it is, or the more abstract something is, the more depth that it has the potential to have. And I think that's related to, fiction versus nonfiction because, for example, with a fiction book, if you tell me a story, or even like with like a movie, for example, when you give me a story that I have to follow, there is definitely depth that what am I wait, what did I just say? There's definitely some depth that you can like um attribute to a book or a show or a movie or like something that's fiction, right? But I don't think that there's as much depth that you can create compared to when like the what's the word? Like when something is abstract and you can come up with your own ideas and conclusions and twist it in any way that you see fit. I feel like you're at least for me at least as a gifted person, so cringe to say I know, but as a gifted person my mind can wander in so many different directions with nonfiction, but with fiction I feel like I'm more restricted. And I'm not saying that that is the case for everyone, but that is the case for me. Is that I feel like I'll read a fiction story or and engage myself in a fiction story, and and my brain. Don't get me wrong, I see so many different levels to fiction, and I can like connect it to so many different things. But I feel like with fiction in general, I think people can, you know, they're kind of at least a little bit more restricted in terms of the amount of depth that they can assign things in the fiction story to. But I feel like with nonfiction, you can just kind of put it in so, or what am I saying? You can just attribute so many different things, and it will. I don't know how to explain it without like drawing a visual, but I feel like you can just kind of, you know, see it however you want to, and I don't know. There's just so much more depth that you can like bring to a nonfiction thing. And even when it comes to like book clubs, for example, the book club that I have with my friend, there's only so much we can really talk about in terms of depth, when it comes to the fiction books that we've read versus the nonfiction books. There's so much we have to talk about. It also helps that she's also a gifted person. She's been my friend, my very close friend since I was like a literal child, like since elementary school. Um, and so, anyways, it's really nice to be able to talk about, interesting things. Like, for example, Anne Rand, The Virtue of Selfishness, that book was one of our, or is one of our book club books, although we haven't really read it in a while, because of me and my things that I've got going on. But, anyways, like, it's just so much more interesting to discuss nonfiction books, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And now I'm gonna go and I will stop talking. I don't want this episode to be too long, but I know no one's gonna listen to this, okay? I know. But these are my thoughts, these are my opinions. I love philosophy. Being gifted is a blessing and a curse. I know that's such a cliche. It's such a oh, I actually learned a new word recently called platitude. I think it's kind of let me find the okay. Yeah. Platitude, which says online that that means that it's like an overused cliched phrase that sounds meaningful but lacks depth. Like, for example, everything happens for a reason, or time heals all wounds. Yeah, see, I don't actually like cliches. I do like cliches because honestly, generally, they're kind of true. But at the same time, I don't like them because I feel like people just throw them around without really thinking about what they're saying. And like, actually, I could talk about that whole topic for so long, and I don't want to keep talking in this episode, so I'm just gonna go. But thank you for listening to my podcast. I hope you guys have a great, great day. Yeah, all right. See you next time. Bye.